So, there's been some drama going on concerning the Mythicist historicist discussion. To catch you up to speed, I asked Dr. Carrier to come on my channel and respond to some misinformation that was being spread by Dr. Litwa. This response led to Neal from the Gnostic Informant posting an inflammatory video that did little to address the issues we discussed and included additional misinformation about Dr. Carrier, myself, and the Mythicist hypothesis. Following this video, I decided to make a series of responses breaking up Neal's argument into smaller sections so that I could more fully address each topic. For the past couple of weeks since my first installment on Philo, this conflict has escalated and become more vitriolic, and eventually Dr. Carrier and Neal sat down to discuss the situation. During that discussion, Neal said a few things that I would like to address. You can find links to all the videos mentioned and referenced in the description.
Start this party with a bang!
And he called Dr. Litwa a liar and incompetent, which is a pretty hefty charge if you're going to call someone that and not show anybody why.
Which indicates to me that Litwa either didn't read the book again, or he's lying, because then he would know these arguments exist and then he couldn't make these claims. But I think he was lying in the first place when he claimed to have read my book. But he didn't do that in this interview, but he's done that elsewhere. His wording is atrociously bad. So we've caught him multiple times where we've had to be very charitable to get his wording to like not be a flat out lie. So he's really bad at phrasing things. So I'm willing to suspect that he's just wording things poorly. And so I want to keep trying to be as charitable as possible to what he might mean.
It reminds me of Ralph Ellis. If you go to a Ralph Ellis Facebook post, he's whining about scholars. And I'm not even comparing. Please don't take this that I'm comparing Mythicist to Climate now, but I'm just going to use this as an example. Now, people like Ralph Ellis, and this is real. I'm not just making it up.
Yeah,
and so that's why
I agree with pretty much all your positions on Ralph Ellis.
Sure. These people are translating text and putting together texts that are like that are becoming standardized for college level courses. Carrier's writing fringe books that are like Ralph Ellis level conspiracy level shit.
Yeah. One of your books I really love is the history of the science in the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I mean that's basically from my dissertation.
So you show in that piece. If there's any historicists out there that can't stand Carrier, if you want to check that book out and you'll change your mind.
Okay,
you are a real historian.
Maybe not. You could say we're of two minds on the subject.
Okay, let's get into a few of my main issues here. First, Neal made a provably false statement. I sent a super chat asking Neal if he intended to apologize to Dr. Carrier for calling him a liar. While he didn't address that super chat, he did have this to say in response to the question.
Right, you could say, like, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have called Richard a liar.
Did I actually call you a liar?
I have the auto-generated transcript. It's in there a lot, but anyway,
I actually called you a liar.
Yeah,
I don't remember doing
or lying. The words lying or liar were in there.
I think I said you were sneaky on some things.
Let's look at the receipts.
Carrier is just making shit up and just speculating what sounds better for mythicism. And I just think it's funny how they're charging him with being a liar and not knowing the scholarship, and he's blatantly lying right in your face. But even if you follow along his crazy reasoning of why he said that, even that falls apart. So there's no Jesus in Philo, and there's no pre-existing Jesus angel that predates Christianity. It doesn't exist. I consider this a blatant lie.
And in this next clip, Neal indicates that he put a lot of thought into possibly being charitable, but then decides to be accusatory instead.
Now, the last thing he says about this particular topic is he goes into another blatant lie. I was going to say misleading, misinformation, but this is actually a blatant lie.
In addition to these examples in video, there are also multiple examples in posts on social media, mainly Facebook. In this next comment, he didn't outright call Dr. Carrier a liar, but he does call Dr. Carrier dishonest, which is basically the same thing. Next, Neal claimed that Dr. Carrier said that Dr. Litwa shouldn't have a PhD.
I mean, how hard is it to say Litwa's wrong about this? Here's what I think he's wrong. Instead of saying he shouldn't have a PhD, he's lying right now.
I never said he shouldn't have a PhD. Also, I
think
never
you did question his PhD.
No,
sure you did.
I never have done this. No.
In
fact,
the Godless Engineer video?
I'm not in the Godless Engineer video.
The
About
one that
Litwa?
the one about Litwa and that you guys were talking about with when he was the video he did with History Valley. You guys were saying people like this should not have PhDs. This
I don't
is
remember
just
saying
completely
that,
wrong. Okay,
I remember saying the opposite, saying that I actually like a lot of Litwa's work and I think it's really solid. I'm pretty sure I said in that video that most of Litwa's stuff is good, and he just dropped the ball in this one thing, and that it was weird to me that he would be so dishonest.
Well, I think the final cut didn't make it because Godless Engineer did not put that in.
Okay,
it came off as you guys laughing at him as like he doesn't know what he's doing, like he's some
maybe about the Ascension of Isaiah thing, but not about his work altogether. Like all his other work, we didn't disparage his other work. We didn't really criticize anything else that he's argued. We only went on this one thing that he screwed up.
This was not said in the video. Neal and others have claimed that there is a longer form video and that I cut this section out. However, this is not true. The video on my channel, which is linked in the description, is exactly the same as it was when we live streamed it, and it was not cut in any way. In case you don't want to watch the entire video, here are the relevant sections where either of us discuss a PhD. That's really aggravating because I've encountered it a lot, and the fact that there are PhDs that are doing it, it's causing it to trickle down into the I guess amateur, like my level, I guess.
That's why I think it's a professional ethical responsibility to not act like this. I think if you want to be tendered the respect due you for having earned a PhD, then you have the responsibility to act ethically like a PhD. And that means what does the PhD give us that the average person doesn't have? It gives us the skills and background knowledge we need to research these things before spouting off about them. So like a random internet amateur will just like cruise some internet sites and then come to conclusions. They'll do their own research, right? But a PhD, they know how to actually properly research something, like for real. And they know that you have to do that before you declare things with confidence. Like those are if there's nothing else you learn getting a PhD, it's those two things, right? And he's abandoning both those things here. So he's tossing the very things that having a PhD gives him that would earn respect and our attention. He's ditching them and acting like some internet rando who's a high school dropout, right? Like this kind of behavior is wrong, and it really does harm the field, because if PhDs start acting like this, PhD doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Like why tender respect to a PhD if they're just going to do this rando shit? It's armchair making stuff up and disinforming the public and not doing research and making confident assertions about things you don't know anything about. That shouldn't be doing this, and it disappoints me. He's really devaluing my PhD because he's devaluing all PhDs by acting like this, and I just wish he wouldn't. He doesn't have to. That's the thing. It's like he has a PhD. He knows how to do this properly. He totally could do it properly. Why is he not doing it properly? I don't understand, right? Like, as for an amateur, I can understand maybe they don't grasp the significance of the things that are beaten into in a PhD program, but Litwa should know these things, and so why he's abandoning them here, I don't know.
Maybe there should be like an HOA for PhDs. They make sure that you're.
Oh my God, that is pretty funny. Yeah. Some sort of, well, it's funny that technically, like, there are professional societies, but that's the one thing they don't do, is that they don't police responsibility among PhDs.
Yeah,
because it's a prestige economy. It's not an epistemic economy. This is a problem with academics in general. You have to suspect every time you hear him pontificate on something, it's like, well, is this more bullshit that he's making up, or did he actually check these things? you don't know, because if he's willing to do it here, how many other subjects and topics is he willing to do it on? And that's scary, and that's the problem. That's why PhDs shouldn't do this. You need to protect the brand, protect the value of a PhD by acting like a PhD, right? Acting like a doctor.
Mhm.
And by not doing it, you're diminishing the value of that, of even claiming to be an authority. There's reading materials, there's challenge questions, and then you go through it unit by unit. But the main thing that you can get out of those is that you have my attention for a whole month on a bulletin board. So you can post all the questions you have and post all the theories you want vetted, anything you want on the subject. And you've got, a PhD, an actual expert who can advise you, evaluate what you're saying, answer your questions, and so on. And so that's probably the biggest value of the course and taking them, but also having the guided reading, having the guided challenge questions that get you engaged with the reading and focusing on what you need to learn in each subject. That's the way to go. And it's much, he's wrong on that, but he's also wrong on the other thing, which is a bit of a digression, but I have to do this because ancient science is my dissertation subject, like Columbia University. This is my PhD topic.
Outer space and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Like he's trying, I feel like a lot of people, including PhD scholars, try to make mythicism look as ridiculous as can be.
Yeah.
As an,
misrepresenting what someone's position is, pretending arguments don't exist that in fact you're supposed to address. Like, these are all apologetical methodologies that he's applying here. He's forgotten how to be a PhD, and he's somehow slipped back into being just another Christian street preacher. And what would be an argument against it? They stopped being scholars for whatever reason. But why are they like this on this subject? They wouldn't act this way on any other topic, right? So an actual PhD in history would not do this. So why are they doing it?
I was disappointed because Neal has no evidence to support this claim, and yet he stated it as if it were fact. I think it was incredibly unreasonable. Another example of Neal's dishonest rhetoric was during a discussion on whether or not Dr. Carrier cares about the truth. This is what Neal had to say in his original response video.
And this actually becomes the playbook of Carrier. Take context away from things, and instead of trying to figure out or teach you what the truth is, he's trying to argue for mythicism. That's all this, it's all he is. He's the polar opposite of what a Christian is, Christian fundamentalist. They don't care what the truth is. They don't care what the actual facts are. They're not trying to actually learn about stuff. They're just arguing for Christianity. This is what mythicism does.
Yet, when face to face with Dr. Carrier, Neal seems to change his tune.
Written articles and blogs on his own Patreon where he says, look, mythicism, I understand where it's coming from. I just don't see that the evidence is there. But he's still trying to engage with the position at some level.
This gets back to my point. It's like, all I care about is the truth, man. Like,
sure,
if he could just tell the truth, then I'd be cool. I'd like an explanation of why he didn't.
So, which one is it? I asked him about that through a super chat, and this is what he said.
Godless Engineer is kind of, doing his rants in my.
Yeah, well, this is a fair question. Yeah, like, you're behaving differently. You're behaving much more.
What do you want me to do? Do you want me to sit here and say that you don't care about truth? Or, like, okay.
And instead of trying to figure out or teach you what the truth is, he's trying to argue for mythicism. That's all this. It's all he is.
Much more.
What do you want me to do? Do you want me to sit here and say that you don't care about truth? Or, like, okay, well, why don't I ask you this then? Do you think having a book out, being the guy, the mythicist guy, weighs in on your ability to sort of look at this thing from another angle at some point? Do you think that sometimes you sort of are arguing because you're just the default guy of mythicism? Does that happen? Which I understand, by the way.
As you can see, he doesn't even answer the question. Speaking of super chats, I sent another super chat for KC, who was unable to due to being hidden on the channel. Here is how that went.
Godless Engineer, still doing his thing over there, having a heart attack.
I'm going to stop right here to call out another example of Neal making a speculative assumption about me and mischaracterizing me to his audience.
Weird that you say other viewpoints should be given a chance when you call mythicism a church Carrier the Pope and me a pastor. Care to retract? No, I don't retract because I think sometimes, not you, but I think a lot of your followers can really go out there and they look very dogmatic.
That's all this. It's all he is. He's the polar opposite of what a Christian is. Christian fundamentalist. They don't care what the truth is. They don't care what the actual facts are. They're not trying to actually learn about stuff. They're just arguing for Christianity. This is what Mythicism does.
Sometimes, not you. Sometimes, not you, but I think a lot of your followers can really go out there and they look very dogmatic, and they can get real, intense with this stuff. Where it looks like the polar opposites happening with apologetics. Sometimes they have an answer for everything. Sometimes you can't just have a regular discussion about these things without saying, no, you're wrong. You didn't read the scholarship. You're misrepresenting everything. Blah, 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 blah.
Unless you're actually arguing
calm
that.
down.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's just calm down a little bit. That's all.
This is a reasonable question given Neal's rhetoric over the past few weeks.
So let me just refer to this one scholar who happens to have the arguments that I want to be correct, and then just hide behind. Don't you think people should get out and look at other opposing views more a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. If someone's doing that, if they're just name picking scholars who support them,
you see that a lot in the amateur world.
If that is,
it's good to give all opposing viewpoints a shot, or give them a fair shake, even if you don't agree with it. I'm just saying.
How can one say that they are open to other views if they are constantly being disparaging and demeaning towards those who hold different positions? It seems a little ridiculous for Neal to expect others to be willing to have honest and open discussions when he behaves this way. And he's engaged in this manner the entire time. Listen to him summarize my 2-hour response with Dr. Carrier.
This is what you guys do. Somebody makes a point that you guys don't like. You go to Carrier, you show him the point. He says, that is incorrect. I can't believe he would say that. And then you just move on to the next fucking thing. You don't show anything. You don't demonstrate.
Now, this is what Carrier does throughout this entire 2-hour video, is he just laughs and says, that is not true. And then John just picks up on his signals and just laughs along, as if they're checking something.
What's interesting is that when I look at Mythicists, they don't really even cite Norelli, and it's quite sad that they're actually not really up on the scholarship.
Okay, pause it there.
There's
that's completely false. Which is another example how he did not read my book. I cite Norelli. In fact, I use Norelli's text for many of my arguments.
Carrier is just using wild speculation. And I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to show you why Carrier is the one who just uses wild speculation, ignores the context, ignores the scholarship, and everybody who disagrees with him is secretly an apologist.
I cite Norelli. In fact, I use Norelli's text for many of my arguments. Now, the thing is that when he says Norelli, he's actually talking about 2 volumes in the Corpus Christianorum, which is a series of text critical books on ancient Christian literature. So I cite it as Corpus Christianorum volume 7 and 8.
You don't show anything. You don't demonstrate.
It's clear to anyone who watched that video that Neal's characterization of it isn't accurate. It's hard for me to take criticism from Neal or anyone who acts like this when he willfully misrepresents people and arguments he disagrees with. Given all this, how can anyone know he's being honest when he talks about opposing views? I'd recommend, if you hear an argument like this, consider fact-checking the validity of the statements before you accept the mistruth and attack other people because of it, so we can get on with having good, honest discussions. Only then can you achieve true gnosis.